Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance podcast, empowering women in business through thought-provoking interviews and insights. Embrace your authentic power, explore the impact of your story, and discover how writing your best-selling book can amplify your message, authority, and the 3 I's: impact, influence, and income. Let each episode guide you towards brilliance in minutes. This is your host, Seema Giri. Welcome to another amazing episode of Break Free to Brilliance podcast. This is a super special episode. It is our 100th episode celebration, and I'm so happy that you are here with me today. Whether you're having your morning coffee or out on a walk or in between your client calls, I'm so glad that you have tuned in today. You know, when I first started this podcast, there was no grand plan, no strategy. I literally jumped in on a whim, trusting that something bigger was calling me to do it. My intuition told me, Seema, now it's time to start a podcast. And, I looked at myself, I was like, really? Me doing a podcast? I don't think so. But I followed through, and here we are today. You know, when have you ever been hit with intuition and it didn't absolutely make any sense to you? Right? Um, I remember, recording Dr. Sanjeev Chopra. He's a professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. He came to give a talk at a wellness conference that I was organizing called Crack the Wellness Code. And he had heard my story of recovering from being bedridden. And he came up to me and said, Seema, that is an amazing story. I'm so glad you followed through with your intuition. And as I was talking to him, I could hear myself say these words to him and internally feeling, what the hell are you saying, Seema? I said to him, Dr. Chopra, I'm starting my podcast soon, and I would love for your interview to be the first one to air. And well, here we are today, 100 episodes later. Has there been a moment in your life when you followed your intuition even though it didn't make any sense at the time? Let us know in the chat what that moment was like for you. Now, I'll be honest with you. There were many times during this journey when I wanted to quit. I even tried to quit. There was a time I didn't release any episodes for an entire month. But that month felt like there was something off, if something was not right. It felt like, putting a podcast together, those who are podcasters know how much work there is involved in it. The planning, the thinking of the content, thinking of who the right guests are that are aligned with you, and how to serve people. And many times I thought, I don't even know if I'm doing it the right way, and what's the point? Am I even making a difference? But no matter what, something always kept pulling me back in. And I realized that when something keeps calling you back, it's because you're meant to keep going, and it's because you're meant to be on this path, even though you may not understand it at that time. And this podcast has been a platform to share my journey. And honestly, it has worked really well to launch my authors and help them increase their visibility. I'm proud to say that this has become a space where we empower one another to speak up, share our stories, and be the change we want to see in the world. So for those of you who may not know me, I'm Seema Giri. I am a 6-time #1 international bestselling and award-winning author, speaker, summit and podcast host, change maker, and community leader. I've mastered mindset, resiliency, and resourcefulness, having defied the odds in my own life, overcoming autoimmune battles despite being bedridden, caregiving burnout, and countless losses. These experiences have shaped who I am today and continue to fuel my passion for helping others rise above adversity. So, leveraging over 30 years of my entrepreneurship experience, I've had the honor of helping over 100,000 leaders and entrepreneurs to create lives they love. I empower women to tap into their inner power and unleash their potential so they become unstoppable in business and life. I guide entrepreneurs to build their brand and business by writing their best selling book and by mastering sales. I also help companies execute their strategic objectives using global project management best practices. So, through my global platform, my clients expand their reach and influence, making a massive positive impact worldwide. And what has been most incredible is how this podcast has provided a platform to highlight all the amazing people I work with and bring them to you so they too can expand their visibility and make their mark. And without this podcast, I would not have had the opportunity to meet so many amazing people and learn from them. I've had the chance of interviewing amazing women as well as heart centered men that really want to make this world a better place. And today, more than ever, is when it's required for us to use our voice to stand up for what's right, to fight for justice, and bring the change that we want in this world. So, thank you again for being here today. And I want to ask you, what's that one thing you've been holding back from pursuing, but deep down you feel like you're meant to do it? Let us know in the chat, or if you haven't thought about it before, reflect on that for a moment, and let's get started with this celebration. So I'm so grateful for everyone of you for coming in live and tuning in. So let's celebrate how far we've come, and let's continue to empower each other to create the change we wish to see. So now let's get started. Our first guest today has an incredible story of resilience, transformation, and love. Imagine going through a divorce and a broken engagement, two deeply painful experiences, and then in just 6 months, finding the love of your life. That's exactly what Leandra did. Leandra is a certified life coach specializing in helping women heal from heartbreak after divorce. Her mission is to shorten the recovery time and help women regain their confidence, rediscover joy, and step into dating with the new mindset. Having been through her own journey of healing, she understands firsthand how shifting from resentment to love can open doors, not just in relationships, but in every area of life. Okay, so Leandra, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Leandra, your story is so powerful. What was the key mindset shift that helped you go from heartbreak to finding love again so quickly?
Yeah, it was probably, had been dating for a while, right? And it just wasn't getting anywhere. And this was a little like right before I had to recreate my love life twice, right? So I was divorced and then dating and then engaged, broke that, and then found the love of my life. So I had a whole process. But one of the things that happened, I was at a 4-day transformational training where we were learning mindset and how our thoughts keep us restricted, right? Depending on what you're thinking. And at this point, I had been divorced for a few years, and I was struggling in my dating. I was struggling in a lot of parts of my life. I was living a very safe life. And at this retreat, it was really talking about the impact you have on others, but it's the thoughts that you were thinking. It was probably the first time I'd ever seen life coaching, training, that kind of thing ever. And so nowadays it's very commonplace, but back then, this was almost 10 years ago, where I was like, what? So one of the things that came up was like, Leandra, you are very self-sufficient. And I was like, okay, and why is that a problem? Well, ask the question, well, why is it a problem? Because at that point, I had become so self-sufficient in, trying to be independent after my divorce, not needing anyone, not just a man, but just even in my friendships, my relationships. And so once I looked at that thought, because I was like, but isn't that a good thing? Like, shouldn't we be independent? Then I realized I was just cutting everyone else out, right? I wasn't asking for help, even at work. I mean, there were so many different places. And so from then on, I was like, well, how do I want to be? Do I just want to be myself? And that's when I started shifting my mindset to, no, I want to invite love. I want to be an invitation to love, because at that moment, it was all about me and all about creating safety for myself in a way that wasn't being conducive to deep relationships. So it was that shift that happened. And then, yeah.
Isn't that amazing that, we strive and work so hard to become self-sufficient, and in some areas that can get in the way as well. So that's a great insight to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great insight to have. And I felt that myself many times that, um, you know, if I can do everything, right? I really don't need a partner for some of the things that many people think women might need. But it's a companionship, right? And
Mhm.
for that, you also need to lean on friends and lean on your significant other. So that's wonderful. So, Leandra, I feel that resilience isn't just about dating, right? It applies to business and career and personal growth. So, how can this mind shift that you just experienced teach you to help women in other areas of their lives?
Ooh, resilience. So that is, I feel like that's what I teach all the time. But even as an entrepreneur, I think from that time when I learned to be out on dating is to learn one of the things is learning when you're dating, when someone does not return a call or does not want to date you anymore, both sides, right? It's not a rejection. And for whatever reason, we see it as a rejection, but it's really, you're just not my person. You're just not my flavor. You're not, we don't, our values don't align. So we need to keep moving, right? We want to, especially if your values do not align and not compatible. So same thing when we're out creating, if we're all entrepreneurs here, same thing. You're out in the world meeting people. You might meet someone who almost aligns, but isn't aligned. And sometimes as women, I think it happens to men, but mostly women, where we take it personally if someone doesn't want to work with us. And right, we have to understand that, like, hey, in our process, whether it's dating or meeting clients, is that you get to love the person in front of you as they are and get to explore if they're the right person for you, right? And that means being curious, being open, asking great questions. And if they're not the person, they're not the client or the business partner, because you're like, oh, maybe this collaboration isn't going to work because we don't align in values, it doesn't mean that anything's wrong with them or anything's wrong with you. It's just not a match. And so learning to tell yourself, hey, that's not a match because of we don't have the same vision or we don't have the same values, then it takes the rejection out, right? We're in this process to keep meeting people and loving on people on both ends, business and in love, to just say, hey, how can we show up for each other and reveal who we are? That's probably one of the biggest things in the dating space. Is reveal who you are, don't hide who you are, so that people can know, like, oh, I'm not up for this, and that's okay. I'm going to go on to the next person. And same thing with business. It's awesome when you meet the right client, right? You're like, the stars have aligned, yay! And you get to work with that person. So that's how I would say building resilience shows up.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I'm sure we all have that one client where we have stories of where it did not go very well. Especially, I think when we're just starting our business, we are trying to get clients, so we might compromise on that. But knowing who your ideal clients is very important. Otherwise, you go through that experience, and at times it can be difficult to becoming a nightmare. So that's a great point. And I never actually looked at well, I've never dated. I've had arranged marriage. So I never looked at it, excuse me, from that perspective. But that's why, because I've never dated.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's great. Great insight on that. So, Leander, Many, I've noticed that many women struggle with self-doubt after a major life setback, right? I've experienced that myself. What's that one practical step that they can take today to start rebuilding their confidence?
Yeah. So the first thing would be stop beating yourself up, right? That would probably be, that's more mindset, right?
Yes.
That's one of the things that I was struggled when I came off my divorce was my feeling of worthlessness, right? And so, moving to, hey, I'm working on creating worthiness in my life, not saying I am worthy. Yes, we want to go from worthlessness to worthy right away, but that's a huge jump for us, especially if we're still going through something traumatic. We can
Yes.
say I am working on bringing my worth back, right? We can say I am creating this versus doing something we're not quite ready, mentally ready. We have to do it step by step. And then when you're creating, at least with the worth and confidence, is do one thing that brings you joy, right? So it might not be if someone's not ready to go back out to date, right? If they're not like, I'm not ready to go on a coffee date. Okay, so I want you to learn to start saying hi to men in an elevator, right? If you live in a building, just start saying hi, like doing one thing like that. If it's in the business, if you're in the business of it, when I first was practicing how to say I'm a life coach after being a compliance auditor for many years, I was like, oh my gosh, like my brain just, so I would say I coach people's. I wasn't ready to say I am life coach. I would just gradually go to networking groups, and start saying I coach people, I'm a life coach, but I wasn't ready to pitch an offer, right? It was one step at a thing, and it's surrounding yourself with like people, right? We hear that a lot, which is why I'm here too, because I meet incredible women, but a lot of it is just surrounding yourselves. Um, and just doing a micro step on that belief.
Wonderful. That's great advice. Um, Leandra, with we are collectively going through some major change worldwide, right?
Mhm.
And this can really instill a lot of fear, a lot of self-doubt again. What would be that one word of advice you could give to everyone, whether they're men or women, today to help deal with the situation?
Yeah, so it's all about what the impact that you're making on the world, no matter what, right? So I believe that you can be who you are no matter what the circumstances. If that's a rough boss, a rough client, a really date that didn't go very well, I always ask, how do you want to show up in spite of, right? In spite of someone that just cut you off while you were driving down the freeway. If someone sent you an email that you didn't quite like, right? That's what we deal with work. It's
Mm.
like, okay, and how are you get to let them be however they want to be, and then you get to show up in love, right? For me, it's a lot like, how do I want to show up in love? Now, I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm still going to ask, like, hey, what's going on with you? If someone sped by and cut me off, I might think, I hope there's a baby in that car and they're like on the way to the hospital or something like that instead of thinking terrible thoughts. So it's more how I want to show up, not like with like, but stepping up and showing my love no matter what.
That's a great advice. Coming from a place of compassion, and I think it's more important now for us, especially us, those of us who are in this room and people like us, right? This is what we're doing. This is what our work is to bring in love, self awareness, self compassion, show that to yourself first, and then, and
Having some
perfect
fun.
timing, whatever that was. And then we can give from our cup that's overflowing,
Amen.
not from our own things. So thank you so much, Leandra.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions or comments for Leandra, please let her know in the comments. Let's share that, and she'll be happy to answer any questions there. And thank you again, Leandra. That was amazing. Great insights. I've learned quite a bit.
Thank you.
Um, So, wasn't that inspiring to hear from Leandra on her dating topic and building resilience and self confidence? Right? It really reminds me of how far we've come with this podcast as well. We've I have learned so much from every single guest. And sometimes I believe some of the guests had showed up with the areas that I needed to learn more for me to step, accepting myself with the talents and the gifts that I bring. I had to really, it took me a while to realize that what I brought to the table was actually a gift that I'm giving to the world. So we just heard from Leandra, who shared how shifting her mindset and resilience helped her rebuild her life and attract the love she truly deserved. But mindset isn't just about dating, it affects every area of our lives, from our confidence to our self worth, body image, and success. That's why our next guest, Liza Lomax, is here to help us to take that transformation even deeper. Liza is a founder of Love Your Body Coaching, and she's all about helping extra achievers, perfectionists, and people pleasers, especially womenpreneurs, learn how to prioritize themselves and thrive. She works with women who struggle with emotional eating, body image, and constantly putting others first while feeling stuck themselves. So, Liza, I'm so excited to have you here.
Yes, I'm excited to be here.
So to start, many women struggle with putting themselves on the priority list. I've been there too. So what is that first step in shifting that mindset and learning to prioritize themselves without guilt?
Well, it's first of all, we have to go back to realizing that as women, we have been conditioned to be unpaid caregivers for the rest of our lives.
Mm,
That's fact. We put ourselves on the back burner. We put ourselves thirds, fourth, tenths to everyone else in our lives, when in actuality, that's an old paradigm way of thinking. It's an old belief system that no longer works. It worked for our great old generations ago, but we
yes.
continue to recycle this belief system over and over and over again, and continue as women to put ourselves not a priority, not make ourselves first in life. And in actuality, it's the opposite. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to prioritize ourselves first and foremost. It's the age old saying, the plane's going down. What do? You put your oxygen mask on yourself first in life. So, well, on the plane, but you do that in life. Like, you have to prioritize yourself and make yourself a priority, because if you didn't, like, how would your family, how would your kids, how would everything else exist around you? So prioritizing yourself actually takes care of everyone in your space. And knowing that self-care is not a luxury. It's a necessity for our well-being and really for our long-term success in life. It's self-preservation. It involves nurturing our physical, our emotional, our mental, our spiritual health.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us who overextend ourselves, I'm a recovering people pleaser, perfectionist, and extra achiever. So, those people that are, those extra achievers, the leaders, or someone who's balancing multiple roles in life. Self-care can easily fall on the bottom of the list, can easily be on the list. And I have a saying where I say, you do not ever put yourself on a to-do list, because you are the to-do list first
Yes.
and foremost. And so, like, one of the things that I do is I pride myself on making myself a priority first thing in the morning. I put me first. I do me time, whatever that is included, whatever I want to do for that day, but that is my time. And I don't schedule anything until after 10, 11, sometimes noon during the day. So that is my thing. That's what I like to do. And so that's why I teach a lot of people is, like, how do you make yourself a priority? Just first thing. So it's baby steps. It's like taking little chunks at a time. For all of us extra achievers, for all of us who have a million gazillion, we think we have a gazillion things we have to get done. When in actuality, the only thing you have to get done is yourself. The only thing you have to pay attention to most all the time, make yourself a priority first and foremost. So.
That is a great point. And I can just, as you say that, the mom in me with the little kids came up and say, "Well, that's good for you, Seema. Now you're an empty nester, but I've got small kids." But I would say, what would you say, Liza, to that mom?
I would say think of your kids. Okay. So if you're gonna do that, so think of your kids. Like, do you want them to have a long-term successful life going forward? Of course you do. So, but you have to start with yourself first. You have to make sure that making yourself a priority, you're taking care of your needs, you're taking care of your wants, you're taking care of your desires. Children are sponges. It doesn't matter whether they're 2 or they're 22. If they see mom taking care of themselves and making themselves a priority, you're going to flip the switch and you're going to break that paradigm way of thinking, that old paradigm way of thinking, and you're going to break that belief system. And they're going to say, oh, mom's taking care of themselves. Like, I should do that. I should be doing that. So you're affecting just by just taking 5 minutes out of your day, even if you have to go sit in the bathroom and just be in the presence of yourself, at least you're taking some time. They'll notice that and they'll see that. And so then you just cut those ties, that energetic tie, energetically, spiritually, emotionally, physically. You're cutting that belief system and changing it and shifting it for them.
You made a very important point. It's two important points, I would say. One is that all you need is 5 minutes, right? All you need is 5 minutes. And it can be even less than 5 minutes at a time throughout the day. And it's okay to tell the kids, you know what? Mommy needs a timeout. Give yourself a timeout.
Yes, yes. I'm a firm believer on timeouts. Like,
Yeah.
adults need timeout more than kids need timeout.
Right, right. And you're also teaching them how to take care of themselves as well. And you're giving them permission because I looked at my mom, even with the college degree, even with all the education, I would look at my mom, I was like, okay, if mom does this, then I can do it too. So it's kind of like that unwritten permission we always need, no matter how old we are. So you're teaching that to your kids at an early age.
Yes.
That is, I'm so glad you pointed that out. Now, how, even as entrepreneurs, even if we don't have little kids, right? And I think you might have to cover this. We're so busy. And especially as entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs, it's really hard for us to set boundaries with people. How can women who are like that start doing that?
Oh, this is a real buzzword. It's all about boundaries, setting boundaries. And we don't understand that boundaries are essential for really preserving the energy and maintaining balance in our lives. They're not walls to keep people out. No, boundary is never a wall, but it's a way to protect your well-being. And as professionals, as caregivers, as extra achievers, people pleasers, the lines, really between the work and the personal life are often do get blurred. So without our boundaries, the other word is burn. I don't like to use burnout, but it is like it essentially becomes inevitable. And so one of the things that like an exercise that somebody could do would be to just identify like areas in their life where they need stronger boundaries. This might be like with if you do a 9 to 5 job, it might be with a colleague, it might be with a client, even yourself. Like, setting boundaries with yourself is a huge act of self-care. So practicing saying no. Like, no without the guilt, without the, and honor those limits, because no is a complete sentence. And again, no is an act of self-care. We don't realize that. I'm like, saying no, like, is an act of self-care. So setting that boundary. Another exercise to do would to be like visualize your boundaries as like a circle around yourself. So what do you want to let in? What do you want to keep out? Try to have that visualize to reinforce and respect your boundaries. And, we set boundaries to keep people in our lives, not to cut them out. Now, I know that there are times, yes, we do need to cut people out, but most of the time when we do set a boundary, we want to keep that person in our life. Like, okay, how can we maintain this civil relationship or the dynamics of this? Because I want to keep you in my life. So how can I do that better serving both of us? And so, we should also know that, going against our own boundaries, because we tend to do that a lot as extra achievers, is a disservice. And it is actually a violation. It's a violation to ourselves if we are not prioritizing ourselves, if we do others before ourselves. And so that's where we're going against our own boundaries. Yeah.
That's quite a strong word, Liza. Violation,
It
right?
is.
Violation towards yourself.
Yes.
But I think it has to be like that because if we don't start thinking like that, then we won't take it that seriously.
No, no.
Because of this, I'm a perfect example. Because of this, people pleasing, putting everyone else on priority, I got three types of autoimmune issues, right? It took
Yeah.
years to build that up, but that's eventually what it leads to. I was lucky enough, realizing now, I was lucky enough to get autoimmune. People get some terminal illnesses because of this too. So it's
Yep.
really, that's why it's so important. It's so important to take care of yourself. Now, Leandra had pointed this out too, Liza. She said
Mhm.
that don't beat yourself up. But I think that's so much easier said than done. So how
It is.
can I stop being so hard on myself? Or,
Well, one of the things that I do a talk called Making the Mirror Your Friend, and a lot of people have heard it. I'm not I You might have heard it, I'm not sure, but I did that talk for a really long time, and it's like, how do we make the mirror our best friend? And one of my own personal struggle was the mirror, and I hated who I saw in the mirror. I hated the reflection. I've even punched mirrors before because I didn't like what I saw.
mm,
Yes, and I've been at both ends of the spectrum when it comes to weight and what you look like and body image. I've been 100 pounds and I've been over 300 pounds. And it never mattered where I was on that scale. I was always unhappy with who I saw in the mirror. So
mm,
to me, the mirror is the most impactful thing, both positive and negative, that you can do to yourself. So one of the things that I talk about in there is I say, okay, I'm going to give you a challenge. And so like everybody listening on here and everybody who will listen to this, I give you a challenge to go to the mirror every single morning and say, I love you. Now, you don't have to even love yourself. This is not the point. Is once you just have to appreciate yourself, appreciate who you see in the mirror, appreciate what you see in the mirror, because eventually what happens is appreciation turns to like, and then like turns to love. But
mm.
again, it's baby steps. It takes a while. So for the next 5 days, so for the next 5 days, I'll hurry up and tell this. Next 5 days, go to the mirror every single morning and say, I love you. And then just kind of pay attention to how your body responds, what happens to you, any physical changes, anything energetically, spiritually, whatever it is. Pay attention to those. And if you notice even the slightest little shift, keep doing it. Because again, appreciation turns to like turns to love. And one really quick little thing about this is that science tells us, people love this, and I'm a science nerd. Science tells us that when we are attracted to someone or something, our pupils dilate.
Mhm.
Our pupils dilate. So if you go to the mirror, and I hope everybody's getting where I'm going with this, if you go to the mirror every single morning and you start to notice your pupils are dilating, that means that you are consciously overriding the fact that you originally didn't love yourself. You're overriding that because your pupils are dilating. So, but it takes time. This isn't like an overnight thing. You have to just keep taking it in little strides, little baby steps, baby steps. So I tell everybody, just go to the mirror. The one thing, go to the mirror and just appreciate what you see. Really, that's what it comes down to it.
That is a great exercise. Thank you for sharing that exercise. And that is a difficult exercise. I've done that myself. But
Yes.
when you see that transformation, and thank you for pointing out about that pupil. I did not know about that. So you can actually see how far you're getting by just looking into your own eyes and
Yeah.
seeing how that's how your pupils are dilating. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Liza. That is,
You.
I love the work that you do. It's so important, especially more now than ever, I believe. And it's a great reminder that, this might sound cliche, but your health is your biggest wealth. If you don't have that, you don't have anything else. So
Mhm.
please, please, please do what you have to prioritize yourself first because you matter and you're needed in this world, not just by your immediate family, but the work that you're doing. So thank you so much, Liza, for bringing this to our attention and being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so now we figured out where that music was coming from. That's such a great way of letting us know um, that the time is up. So let me see if I can just reset that. I'm using this timer for the first time. Okay. So that was awesome hearing from Liza on her perspective. And I wholeheartedly agree with everything that she said, and everyone to really, make yourself a priority and take time out for yourself, because that is needed. And that's how you're going to show up better for your clients. We need to show up for the people in our lives, for the people that we are working with and supporting. Okay. So Liza just showed us how I can't talk today now. Liza just showed us how prioritizing yourself, excuse me, creates space for more confidence, success, and fulfillment. But how do you take that transformation and show up powerfully in your business? That's where Melanie Whitaker comes in. A PR consultant for female coaches and service providers, Melanie helps her clients lead with their story to attract the right audience and grow a thriving business. In today's world, people want authenticity. They want to know you before they buy from you. So, Melanie will share how to ditch outdated marketing tactics and instead use the power of your story to build real connections and stand out. Welcome, Melanie.
Hi, Seema, and congratulations on your 100th episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And what a way to celebrate with you here. So, Melanie, what's the biggest mistake people make when it comes to using their story in business?
Quite a lot of people feel like they don't have a story, or they seem to think they downplay it. No one gets what I have to say. And I predominantly work with female coaches and female service providers, and especially in the coaching industry. The coaching industry has had a bad rap simply because quite a lot of coaches have wanted to present the perfect line. And as we know, no one has the perfect life. So when I deal with coaches, they can, excuse me, they can often say, oh, well, I don't want to really discuss those problems I went through because I don't want people knowing that. Now, that's a personal choice. I never make someone talk about something they'd rather not do. That's fine. But if it's fitting to what they do and it's fitting them getting a client, then what I say to them is you need to release perfection. What you've gone through is exactly what someone is seeking. So just to give you an example, let's say I had a miscarriage, and maybe people don't know that. And when I'm preparing a pitch and a woman tells me that she has had a miscarriage, I will always ask and say, would you be comfortable discussing it? Simply because any woman who's had a miscarriage, she is immediately paying attention to you. Then that's going to lead to her paying attention to your marketing.
That is a great input. Yeah. I know with the things that I've been through when I started this Uplift Media, the publishing business, and having to share my story. When you're a solopreneur, you have to lead with your story. That was really difficult. And I didn't even, I always thought that I didn't have a story also. So it's a journey that many of us go through, and to realizing, and through books, that's what I'm helping my clients see too. 98% of my clients say, "Oh, Seema, great idea. I don't have a story." So I'm glad that you are doing this in the PR business as well. But Melanie, can you explain what is the difference between PR, public relations, and marketing?
Oh, that's really easy. I get asked this a lot. And I'm going to break it down so that a 5-year-old can understand. So
Right.
I'm going to imagine now that there are two cars. There's one in the left-hand lane and there's one in the right-hand lane. The car that's in the left-hand lane is marketing. Marketing is selling the product, the service. Okay. Prime example of that is you can go into any Facebook group and there's always going to be someone saying, buy my coaching, buy my book, come to a retreat, join my mastermind. The list goes on. At that specific time, unless you know the person saying please buy whatever, you don't care because you don't know them. Okay, they're just someone in a Facebook group trying to make a sale. Okay, the car in the right hand lane is public relations or PR. That will never ask for money. What PR is going to do is it's going to tell your story. It's going to lead with value. And what is so important, and I tell all my clients, is stand for something. Stop trying to appeal to everyone and have that mindset of, oh, well, I just want a client. What you need to do is be speaking to your ideal client. And when we know your story, what you stand for, your core values, your vision, your mission, why you get out of bed every day, especially on the hard days, because we all have them, that's going to keep you going, because the PR is telling people who you are. So for instance, me now on this podcast with you, I'm not going to lead with what I sell. What I am doing is, I'm not doing it at this specific time, but when you do like a long podcast interview, you start telling who you are, your story, what led you to do what you do, the highs, the lows, and what you've overcome. And when people know this, they feel a connection to you. And if they feel a connection to you and they like you, it's going to lead to the sale.
So based on what you just said, I think many of us are doing PR at the same time, maybe not realizing that's PR. Okay, interesting. So, let us know in the chat if you didn't realize that you were doing PR all along. But the other thing that I think, Melanie, is that many of us feel that let me get to a certain stage before I start doing PR, or I'm just not big enough to do PR right now. What do you say to those individuals?
Oh, I love this. I absolutely love it when a woman says it to me, because basically it's fear. Women, we're very complex creatures and we have fear for a multitude of reasons, especially PR. You're going to be out on platforms, so people are going to see you, and a lot more people are going to see you. So some women could have body image problems. So they could be like, oh, but I need to lose weight. Some could be like, well, I need to gain more qualifications. And the biggest one of all is when a woman says to me, well, what's the point of me doing PR? Because a woman over there who's in my industry, she's massive. She has a huge following. Everything she sells turns to gold. And they feel really like blah about who they are. And what I always say to a woman, no matter what the problem is, but especially the last one I've just said, is at some point, the woman that you're comparing yourself to hit a moment in her life where she said, I'm fed up being the unheard voice. I'm fed up not booking clients. And I'm fed up getting overlooked. Like no one's talking about me. No one even knows what I do. Like it's like being a shadow, right? She reached that point. And when she reached that point, that's when she went, I'm done. I'm going to play a bigger game. I'm going to stand for something and people are going to pay attention to who I am. But then on top of that, she's many years ahead of you. So you can't compare your journey to her. But I will never force someone into doing PR. That's not how I roll. But what I say to someone when they say that to me is, I don't know when that day is going to happen. It could be tomorrow, it could be a week from now, months from now, years from now. But you will reach a point where you say, I'm just done. I'm done with the struggle. I'm done with it being hard. And I'm going to up my game.
And
so in answer to what you're saying about if a woman's struggling, what I want you to know is I don't care if you're at the start of your journey, the middle of the journey, or you're even well established. Your story matters.
Yes. Your story matters. And you don't have to reach a certain level because you're here, because You're alive because you lived a life. You have an amazing story, and your story matters. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Jana is saying we are all work in progress. Yes, we're all work in progress and we're never done evolving. Very true. Yeah, and my goal with doing this podcast with you, Melanie, is for women to realize they don't have to wait till they get frustrated and fed up. They can start that now.
You can start it immediately.
Yeah,
Literally, it's
exactly.
about creating, what I do is sit down and I'll create a pitch for the client, I'll create a press release for the client, and it's about getting out there. It's about saying, I'm worthy of taking up space. The podcast could have only a few listeners, or it could have a lot of listeners, but that's if they choose to do the podcast route. There's many avenues. You can do digital TV, you can do magazines, you can do radio, you can do TV. There's many ways. So I would suggest to a woman who's feeling very apprehensive, just make a start. It's like the toddler. Well, no, let's go a bit more than a toddler. Look at the little kid who's learning to ride a bike. The stabilizers are on, they're wobbly, they need support. You make a start until eventually you don't need that support anymore, because guess what? You're just being you.
Yeah. You're just being you, and your tribe is waiting for you. They need a way to find you. So if you're not doing PR, if you're not doing these things, they're not going to build that know, like, trust factor, and they're not going to be able to find you. Most importantly, know, like, trust factor comes later. So you need to make yourself visible. You need to find ways to allow yourself to be found because your tribe is waiting for you. So I don't know how much more lovingly, compassionately, and strongly I can say this, right? So get over yourself and be found so your tribe can be helped, because that's why you're even into business, to help your tribe. Thank you so much, Melanie. Great wisdom, great insights. And I was
Like,
finally able to have that click in my mind between the difference between marketing and PR. So I hope this has given you some insights, and Melanie gave some great actionable insights for you to take right away. So be found. If you can't be found, your tribe can't be helped, and that's you're you're not doing a favor to anyone, right? You're not being fulfilled, and you're not making the impact that you want to make. So let's get over this and let's start being visible. What an inspiring way to wrap up this incredible event. Today, we were privileged to hear from a group of phenomenal women who each shared unique strategies for overcoming obstacles and stepping into your full power. Leandra showed us how resilient mindset can transform every aspect of your life, from healing after heartbreak to reigniting your confidence in all areas. Liza taught us that prioritizing self care and setting boundaries isn't just about feeling good. It's essential for thriving as a high achiever in every area of your life. Melanie emphasized that your story is your most powerful tool in business, proving that authenticity and genuine connection are key to attracting the right opportunities. Now, here's my challenge to you. What's one action you'll take from today? Whether it's shifting your mindset, embracing authenticity, or taking control of your finances. Make that decision now. Start today and let your breakthrough be just one decision away. Thank you for being part of this transformative journey. Keep showing up, keep growing, and remember, your future is yours to create. Break free to your brilliance. And if anyone hasn't told you today, I want you to know that you have an incredible story and your story matters. Until next time, this is Seema Giri. Make sure you don't miss part 2 of this episode, where our speakers will be Penny Kidd, Andrea Sternberg, and Jana Lane. See you in part 2.